What is a spiritual awakening? Okay, so I have an analogy for you and for Alex.
Okay.
So Alex hasn't heard this,
Yeah, I
but
haven't heard it.
he's going to confirm if he thinks that my analogy on what a spiritual awakening is correct.
Okay.
Okay?
Go.
So, a spiritual awakening is like being at a wedding.
Okay.
When the bride and the veil gets lifted, okay? But instead of this beautiful white material being lifted, the veil is a bunch of bull. And instead of it being lifted and then you getting to look at the person that you love the most in the entire world, you get to see all of the lies and the deceit and all of the evil and crap and how the world really is. What do you think? Is that correct?
It's pretty accurate.
So a spiritual awakening is a new perspective. You just start to see things differently. You start to see yourself differently. You start to see the world differently. You start to see the systems differently. You just see all of it differently. And my analogy at the beginning was obviously quite dark, and it can be very, very dark for some people. It's like that veil gets lifted and everything just seems really depressing and it's not as happy and awesome as you originally thought. But on the flip side, and this is what it was kind of like for me, it can be very liberating and you can feel empowered and you're like, I don't have to live this way, I can do it differently. So yeah, it's a new perspective, whether you suddenly think, oh, this is awful, or oh, amazing, and you feel empowered to live a different way.
It can also be that you're starting to question everything, and why is it, and what's going on, and authority, especially authority. I know for myself, but it's also just an awareness. It's not necessarily spiritual. It's an awareness of everything. It's like Amy said, when you release that veil, you start to see things for what they truly are. And also, if the term spiritual awakening doesn't sit well with you, you can use the word awareness. It's very simple. Awareness, just be aware.
Be aware. So if you think you're on, I just spat, I'm sorry. If you think you're on a spiritual journey, a spiritual awakening, then definitely subscribe, because we plan to do a load of these videos for people who are just starting their journey.
Yeah, and it can be lonely, so just come and hang out with us. We love your company and we appreciate any feedback you got, and we can grow together.
Yes, exactly. So definitely subscribe. When I had my spiritual awakening, I wouldn't actually call it a spiritual awakening. It was more of like an awakening, and then the spiritual stuff came a bit later on. I had like a realization. I was in a really awful, toxic relationship, and I got to a point where I was like, what am I doing? What is this? So I bought How to Win Friends and Influence People, and that kind of got me onto this whole spiritual journey. But yeah, it wasn't like an immediate, quick, like wake up and I understood the spiritual world and all of that. It was more of an internal, like, self-awakening of how I was and how I was living, and I didn't want to live that way anymore, right? I didn't want to be in that relationship. I didn't want to be the person that I was, because I completely lost myself. But yeah, definitely not spiritual in the beginning. That kind of came later on for me. Alex, however,
let me tell you, for me, it was like, you need to get spiritual and change the way you're living or you're gonna die. Like me, I am a recovered addict, alcoholic, and that is part of my story, but you know, today I'm well and I'm doing great, but it's because I needed to change. And for me to change, it was a spiritual awakening in the sense that, like, I needed to do things a lot differently, and it had to be drastic. So for me, it had to happen really fast, right? Unlike Amy, where it happened over a set of years almost, right?
Yeah, I mean, that was probably 4 or 5 years ago
Yeah,
now.
so like for me, it happened really quickly, and it was almost like a necessity, right? And now that I've been sober and been doing this kind of lifestyle, things unveil themselves over and over again, and I get to work on it slower now, but it was really profound and really like intense right from the beginning, because it had to be for me.
If you think you might be going through a spiritual awakening, hit the thumbs up on this video, and go and watch this next video. We love you.
Bye.